I'll start with Nishant, who's sitting here, to give his prepared remarks. Nishant, you can speak from here or walk up there and whichever you have presentation. That's great. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think today we have a very august panel in this session, which is quite diverse, global and domestic, and in domestic mix of government and different companies who are domestically promoted or global MNCs. So brings a good mix and people coming from all different parts of the ecosystem, as all of them are really essential for the whole EV mobility revolution to be successful. So I'll just give my perspective about electric vehicle rollout challenges in India. So first of all, actually, the point is that we are in the business of energy transportation is that we are talking about different modes of fuel which are being used for transportation. All of them are green. In CNG, the government is talking about 10,000 new CNG stations in a span of next 10 years. At the same time, you see in biofuels, we are talking about complete feedstock in ethanol, methanol, all such kind of fuels being used in electric mobility. You've heard a lot since morning and last few days, and we are really seeing in fuel cells also a lot can happen in the future. But everywhere, certain things which are changing now, and in India, what we are talking about is end-to-end 360-degree approach, which is generation to consumption. And definitely, I think each of them have a degree of disruption which they bring in, where CNG has the least because all of us are used to it for the last 20 years, but still it hasn't gained the momentum we would have liked it to. And at the same time, all others having a level of disruption which can be managed. So one needs to see that uh, either one of them would move forward, but personal opinion of mine is that it will all coexist since different parts of the country and different ways India needs multiple solutions. So the level of urbanization in our country has gone up substantially in the last 100 years, and we see that it will be even faster in these 20 years from 2011 to 2030. About 41% of our country would be urbanized, and a large part of this population is contributing to the GDP of the country, which is about two-thirds of the GDP. And many new centers will be developing across the country, many new areas would prosper. But the major concern which is there is air pollution, and out of top 20 most polluted cities, India has about 13, 14 of them, 14 of them, and we need to have a concrete action in place for really giving a solution. And transportation is definitely a key cause of this pollution. About 35% of the pollution is caused through transportation, and this is a subject which needs to be considered as one of the key focus areas for us, and considering that FAME 2 has been launched. I'd split transportation into different segments: two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, and buses. And really seeing that not touching too much on two-wheeler, but what the government is really trying to say, I'd talk more on public transport, how in e-auto, e-rickshaw, the taxi segment, and intracity. And that's what we see in the FAME 2 policy also, that a big focus has been given towards three-wheelers, which is about 500,000 vehicles. The buses have been given about 7,000 buses. Then passenger cars have been given about 55,000 passenger cars. But the idea is that how the masses are able to get the benefits of the government schemes, and we are not talking about electric vehicles purely, we are talking about zero emission vehicles, where I always position as electric vehicles being, electric technology being the most promising technology in zero emission vehicle technology as on date. And this is what we see in our day-to-day lives across all big metros and even smaller cities. It's all clutter, and what kind of sustainable transportation systems we can bring in place is the need of the hour. So why we talk about e-buses, what's the real comparative when we compare to diesel or hybrid or electric? As Sajid mentioned, I think India is skipping the hybrid part of it in the bus space at least, and moving on to electric buses. So when I compare with European conditions, road conditions and driving conditions, it's about 71% improvement vis-a-vis diesel, which is the main source of fuel for the buses in India, which is about 1.6 million buses. But even if I take the tough conditions we have in India in terms of road conditions, traffic conditions, other things, still we have about 42% benefit vis-a-vis diesel. There are multiple stakeholders when we talk about e-buses, how to institutionalize the incorporation of e-buses, whether it's cities, it's different operators as customers or discoms and OEMs who are really involved into all this. Why are cities looking to do this? Because they would definitely like to reduce the pollution, they would like to improve the quality of life for all the citizens. How are they really taking their cities to the next level? The idea is that the transporter operators or customers really want that they are having an optimal cost structure, the infrastructure is not creating too much disruption. At the same time, discoms play a very essential role in this case, is that how they are selling electricity, what kind of transmission distribution infrastructure is there, what kind of grid availability is there, what's the uptime, and definitely OEMs manufacturing the vehicles and other solutions and services which they are providing for the end customer. So all stakeholders are playing a very important role in giving a robust e-mobility solution. The perspective is that how are we talking about TCO attractiveness? When we talk about TCO attractiveness, definitely now we see that on the top left quadrant, you see that the push from the government is there, fiscal, non-fiscal. Currently, we have seen more fiscal, there's not as much of non-fiscal, but definitely in times to come, different cities, states are taking those initiatives themselves. And the TCO with that becomes more favorable. And there are certain actions which are happening at the market end also, where we see the battery prices are going down. Government is trying to see that how manufacturing is moving to India. We are not facing the same issues as we did in case of the telecom, solar, or many other sectors where most of it is still being imported. We missed the bus few years back in last 2 decades. So in case of EVs, how are we going to create a whole ecosystem where generation to consumption is being taken care of? And all of that leads to rapid adoption of electric vehicles, where the prime focus today is on public transportation and mass market. There are multiple PPP models, public-private partnership models, which are existing across the world, where cities and OEMs, where different city entities, technology players, multiple OEMs are collaborating together, infrastructure providers are working on certain models. So there's not one single model which is going to give the desired solutions. We'll all need to really see that which models work for which city, under which circumstances, what kind of demographic, geographic challenges they have, and accordingly we'll need to create well-suited models. There are certain key factors when we talk about electrification and e-mobility. Everybody we hear talks about battery technology, but definitely in terms of battery also there's a lot to it. What type of technology, what density are we talking about, what's the efficiency level, are we talking end of life perspective or not, what's the price, how long it's going to last, what's kind of warranty and conditions. All these issues have to be faced and understood by the OEMs who are giving warranty on their vehicles, who are committing a certain level of performance in those vehicles. Similarly, the customer feels that, okay, what kind of range anxiety issues are there, how long will it take to charge the vehicles, will I be charging at home, will I be charging at a public place. Now we are also seeing that there are certain policy frameworks which are coming into play, where in the new buildings, in commercial buildings, government is trying to bring in a law that how certain number of chargers should be there in every government building. Their discoms also would be playing a very important role. How could they support with the lower cost of power for charging, for incentivizing in different ways and means. And there are multiple other key drivers which I'd say that whether it's policy, regulation, where obviously with FAME 2 and PMP we have more clarity. Execution will be the key in this case, how the government programs as well as the key enablers like real estate or norms and regulations. I think Sajid would be putting some points across on the norms and regulations today. We'd see some things on technology, on wireless technology as we were hearing, and other perspectives, what really states are looking for, cities are looking for. We have Pune Smart City Corporation's perspective here. I think that will be quite interesting. They have been taking quite interesting steps when we are moving forward. At the same time, there are certain factors which definitely impact, and there are certain growth drivers which we have. So the upfront price of the buses are definitely higher, but when we see on a total cost of ownership perspective, it's lower. And we are seeing that with the BS6 implementation next year, the gap will get narrower, as is an inverse relationship where the price of the electric vehicles are going down vis-a-vis the price of conventional vehicles going up. Similarly, there is a lot more clarity. We are talking of charging as a service, electricity can be provided as a service, power availability, and there's a lot of awareness which is there across the country, and this is a transition phase. chargers, I think we'll leave to Sajid to talk about that CCS2, CHAdeMO, GBT and other things, how we are having our own standards or interoperability of charging systems. Definitely, it also brings about a lot of new opportunities as the government is talking about the phased manufacturing program, localizing 40%, 50%, up to 70% in these 2 to 3 years. So there are multiple areas where we'll need companies to manufacture locally. There are a lot of partnerships, alliances which would take place in this period of time, whether we talk about battery packs, power electronics, motors, transmission, many other areas. A lot of new business models, like in the last session, somebody was asking what would come up. So battery leasing, financing, afterlife usage. So residual costs, how would they be allocated, charging as a service, installation services. So many of these things would be coming up in this case, which are not existing today as business models, as businesses which are vanilla businesses which have been there for a long period of time. How I see the transition is that definitely starting from battery pack and BMS going up to battery modules and then cells would be the third bit which would come in addition to the other key components like uh, motors or controllers, HVAC, all the key aggregates which account for the whole vehicle. So it would be very important that how in PMP and how the whole ecosystem drive enables different OEMs and tier ones to collaborate. And here the other good part which I'm quite happy to see, there's not the auto industry alone which is bringing this transition. There's a lot of understanding and knowledge in the high voltage area from railway sector, from power sector, from many other sectors. So people are really collaborating a lot in this, since there's no one company which can give any solution. So that would actually bring in a lot of clarity. As an organization, I represent JBM Group, so we focus on this concept which we call well-to-wheel concept, trying to see that how are we having an integrated play in this case, starting from clean energy, energy storage, charging infra and electric vehicles. So end-to-end perspective clearly. So we put solar power plants and have energy storage systems at the same time with the charging infra and electric vehicles. Otherwise, if I split into two parts, so it's well to tank and tank to wheel. So electric vehicles give a solution only from tank to wheel, not from the well to tank. And if the power generation is still happening from fossil fuel or non-conventional energy, non-renewable energy, then in that case, it doesn't make any sense. So it becomes very important for us to be able to have the whole ecosystem in place and really seeing that the clean energy generation today where we are at about 72 gigawatt as a country out of 350 gigawatt of renewable energy, total energy. So this would go up to about 400 gigawatt out of 800 gigawatt in about a decade or so, which is 50% renewable energy. So these would be the areas where such renewable energy can be utilized. Just a bit about our electric buses. The perspective is that how you are building the ecosystem approach with all kind of charging systems, whether it's home, highway, public charging, office charging, and people have that comfort of having the whole ecosystem in place. Wherever they go, they have such kind of infrastructure available which can be utilized. Thank you.